The Bond of Ashgrave, Part 2. I took a blade meant for the man who once kept me as his prisoner. While fighting for my life, I finally confessed the impossible truth that this world was once only a story I had written. But changing the story came with a price, and a war far greater than either of us expected was already beginning. Pain arrived before understanding did, a white-hot line of it opening along River's ribs, and for one endless second he thought the world had simply stopped, smoke and firelight and screaming all frozen mid-motion. Then his knees buckled and Jasper's arms were around him, catching him before he hit the stone floor, and River understood, distantly, that the blade meant for Jasper's side had found him instead. No. Jasper's voice cracked clean in half on the single word. No, no, look at me, stay with me. I'm fine, River tried to say, and heard how thin it came out, how the world had gone soft and grey at the edges in a way he recognized from another death entirely, a hospital ceiling and tubes and a monitor screaming flat. He was not going to die the same way twice. Some furious, stubborn animal part of him decided that with total clarity even as his vision kept sliding sideways. Jasper's face above him had gone white with a fear River had never seen on him before, not even in battle, not even facing three blades alone. He pressed his palm hard against River's side, blood welling hot and immediate between his fingers, and turned his head to roar an order at whoever was still standing near enough to obey it. Get Del. Now. And someone bring me Corvin's head before I take it myself. Corvin, to his credit or his cowardice, had already melted back into the smoke the moment his blade found its mark, gone before Jasper's men could close around him, his own guard falling back in a fighting retreat that told River this had never been meant as a siege at all. It had been a message. A demonstration. Corvin had wanted Jasper to watch someone he loved bleed out on his own floor, and he had gotten exactly that, and River was furious, distantly, dizzily furious, that even bleeding he understood the shape of the trap perfectly and still could not do anything to stop it. Stay awake, Jasper said, voice raw, gathering River up against his chest despite the blood soaking through both their clothes now. Stay awake, that's an order, do you hear me, little bird, that is an order. Bossy, River managed, half a laugh, half a sob, and Jasper made a sound that was not quite a laugh back, wrecked and desperate, pressing his mouth hard to River's forehead like he could hold him together through wool alone. River woke 3 days later in Jasper's own bed, the fever finally broken, sunlight thin and grey through the shutters, and the first thing he understood was the weight of a hand wrapped tight around his own, and the second thing he understood was that the hand belonged to a man who had clearly not slept in all 3 of those days. You're an idiot, Jasper said, before River had even fully opened his eyes, voice rough with exhaustion and something that had not quite finished being fear yet. Do you understand that? A complete and utter idiot. You threw yourself in front of a blade that was never meant for you. It was meant for you, River rasped. His throat felt like sand. I wasn't going to just stand there. Jasper's jaw worked, and for a moment River thought he might actually shout, might finally let loose all 3 days of terror in one furious outburst. Instead he bowed his head until his forehead rested against River's knuckles, and his shoulders shook, once, hard, before he got it back under control. If you had died, Jasper said quietly, I would have burned every acre Corvin has ever set foot on. I want you to know that. I want you to know exactly what almost happened to this entire kingdom because you couldn't stay behind a locked door for 10 minutes. Noted, River whispered and reached up with his good arm to touch Jasper's face, and Jasper turned into it like a starving man finally given permission to eat. I love you, Jasper said, and this time it did not slip out sideways in half sleep, it was said clear and deliberate and terrified, a man laying down a weapon he had carried his whole life. I have from the first month you stopped flinching at my hands. I should have told you properly a long time ago instead of letting you find out by nearly dying for me. River's chest ached, and not from the wound. I love you too, he said, and it came easier than he expected, easier than anything had come in either of his two strange, tangled lives. I have for a while. I just didn't know how to say it to a man I used to write. Jasper went very still. What did you say? River had not meant to say it, not yet, not while he was weak and fevered and stripped of every careful wall he'd built to keep this exact conversation locked away. But it was out now, and Jasper's gold eyes had gone sharp and searching in a way that told River there was no taking it back. I need to tell you something, River said slowly, and I need you to not decide I'm mad before I finish. He told him everything. The hospital bed, the crash, the notebook full of a world he'd invented and never finished, a lord named Jasper with a scar through one eyebrow and a cruelty that had, on the page, never once softened into love. He told him about Corvin, about the ending he'd never written because it had hurt too much to imagine, an ending where House Corvin's ambition finally succeeded and Ashgrave burned to its foundations with its lord inside it. Jasper listened without interrupting, face unreadable in a way that frightened River more than shouting would have, and when River finally ran out of words the silence in the room stretched long enough that River began to regret every single one of them. You wrote me, Jasper said finally, quiet, testing the words like they might cut him. Before you ever met me. You wrote this whole war. I wrote a rough draft of a world. I never finished it. I don't know what happens after this, Jasper, I swear to you, I stopped writing before Corvin ever won anything. But you knew he was a threat. From the moment he rode through my gate smiling, you knew, and you said nothing. I didn't know how to say it, River said, voice cracking. How was I supposed to walk up to you and say, I think I invented you in another life and I think I'm about to watch you die because I never finished the story? You would have thought I was mad. I thought I might be mad. Jasper was quiet a long moment, jaw tight, gold eyes fixed on some middle distance River couldn't follow. Then, slowly, some of the tension went out of his shoulders, replaced by something heavier and more complicated. Then we write a different ending, Jasper said. Together. Whatever you imagined once, in whatever life you had before this one, it doesn't have to be the only path left to us. I refuse to lose you to a story you never even finished. River let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding, and something in his chest that had been braced for rejection finally loosened. He reached for Jasper's hand again, and Jasper let him take it, threading their fingers together with a gentleness that felt like a vow. Okay, River said. Then let's burn the draft. He healed slowly, the wound along his ribs closing into a thin silver line that Jasper touched sometimes in the dark with a reverence that bordered on penance, as though he could apologize to the scar itself for ever letting it happen. The keep healed slower, half the eastern wall still scorched black, and Jasper spent his days now in the map room instead of the training yard, gathering allies against a threat that had finally, undeniably, revealed its teeth. River healed into something else too. He noticed it first on a night barely 2 weeks after the fever broke, when Jasper reached for him with his usual careful restraint, mindful of the healing wound, and River pulled him down anyway, hungrier than he had ever let himself be before. Slow down, Jasper murmured, surprised, pleased, palm sliding cautious over River's ribs. You're still healing. I don't care, River said, and meant it. Some old fear finally burned away by 3 days of nearly losing everything. I want you. All of you. I'm done being careful. Jasper's control cracked audibly at that, a low groan escaping him before he could stop it, and for the first time since River had arrived in this world, he did not have to be coaxed or teased or patiently worn down into wanting. He met Jasper's pace and matched it, desperate and certain, and Jasper pulled back once, breathless, to stare down at him like he was seeing something new. "There you are," Jasper said, voice wrecked. "I always knew you'd catch up to me eventually." "Don't get used to it," River gasped, laughing even as his back arched under Jasper's mouth. "I still get tired faster than you." "I'll take what I can get," Jasper said, and proved, over the long hours that followed, exactly how much of himself he intended to spend proving it, until River was boneless and shaking and utterly wrecked in the best possible way, Jasper's name the only word left in his mouth by the time the candles finally burned to nothing. Afterward, curled together in the dark, Jasper's fingers tracing slow absent patterns along the new scar on River's ribs, River let himself say the thing he had been too afraid to say out loud since waking up in a cage half a year ago. "I don't want to go back," River admitted quietly. "Even if I could. Even knowing how dangerous this world is. I would rather stay here and fight Corvin at your side than ever go back to the life I had before." Jasper pressed a kiss to his temple, slow and certain. "Good. Because I was never going to let you leave anyway." In the days that followed, Ashgrave filled with the sound of hammers and grinding steel, the quiet business of a keep preparing for something it did not yet have a name for. River spent his mornings in the map room now, not as a pet trailing at Jasper's heel but as something closer to a partner, tracing old borders and older grudges with a knowledge of narrative shape that even Jasper's most seasoned advisors lacked. He knew, in the bones of him, how stories like this one liked to bend. He intended to break every single one of those bends before Corvin could use them. "You think like a man who's already lost this fight once," Jasper observed one night, watching River frown over a map of the southern passes by candlelight. "I've never seen anyone plan a war like they're rewriting it." "That's exactly what I'm doing," River said, and did not look up. "I already know every mistake the version of you in my head made. I'm not going to watch you make them twice." Jasper crossed the room and settled behind him, arms circling loose around River's waist, chin resting against his shoulder as he studied the map too. "Tell me one," he said quietly. "One mistake. I want to hear it from you, not guess at it." River hesitated, old instinct still flinching from the weight of it. He trusted the river crossing at Hollow Ford. Left it lightly guarded because he thought Corvin would never risk it in winter. Corvin risked it anyway. Jasper was quiet a moment, and then, low against River's ear, "Then we double the garrison there tomorrow." A pause, his mouth brushing the shell of River's ear, some of the day's grim focus finally softening into something warmer. "You've saved this keep once already tonight and you haven't even taken your boots off yet." "Don't get distracted," River said, though his breath had already gone uneven at the slow drag of Jasper's mouth along his throat. "I'm never distracted," Jasper murmured, hands sliding beneath River's shirt, unhurried and certain. "I simply believe a good commander rewards his strategists properly." River laughed despite himself, tipping his head back to give Jasper better access, maps and grim futures forgotten for the length of one long, unhurried hour that left candle wax pooling forgotten on the table and River draped bonelessly over Jasper's lap, more thoroughly rewarded than any strategist in the history of either of his lives had ever been. It became, in the weeks that followed, an easier rhythm than either of them expected. War council by day, and by night something that felt less like captivity and more like a partnership forged in candlelight, Jasper's hunger for him no less enormous than it had ever been but met now, more often than not, by a want of River's own that no longer needed coaxing to surface. "I used to think you'd wear me down eventually," River admitted one night, sprawled across Jasper's chest, both of them sweat-damp and unhurried in the dark. "Now I think I might actually be starting to keep up with you." "Careful," Jasper said, low and amused, fingers tracing lazy circles at the small of River's back. Say things like that and I'll simply have to prove you wrong all over again. You say that like it's a threat. With you, Jasper said, tipping River's chin up for a slow, unhurried kiss, it's never a threat. It's a promise I intend to keep for the rest of both our lives. The raven came 4 days later, Corvin's seal pressed into black wax, and Jasper read it once in silence at the head of the map room table before setting it down with a stillness that made every servant in the room quietly find a reason to be elsewhere. He's declaring for the Southern Crown, Jasper said finally, voice flat with the particular calm of a man doing everything in his power not to shatter something. Openly now. No more border disputes dressed up as neighborly quarrels. He means to march on Ashgrave properly this time, and he's naming House Kestrel traitors to justify it before he does. River crossed the room and stood at his shoulder, reading the letter for himself, Corvin's elegant, contemptuous handwriting laying out a war dressed up as justice. Somewhere south of here, more houses would already be choosing sides. Somewhere south of here, the story River had once abandoned halfway through a chapter was writing itself forward without him, faster now, with teeth. Then we stop being careful too, River said quietly, and Jasper turned to look at him, something fierce and grateful moving behind his gold eyes. You understand what that means, Jasper said. This isn't a skirmish anymore. This is a war for the whole North, and Corvin has already shown he's willing to burn my own halls to get to what he wants most. I know exactly what it means, River said. I've read the first draft, remember. I just don't intend to let it end the same way twice. Jasper caught his face in both hands, gold eyes searching his for a long, silent moment, and then kissed him, slow and deliberate, a promise pressed directly into River's mouth instead of spoken aloud. Then we ride south before he can finish gathering his allies, Jasper said against his lips. And this time, little bird, you don't leave my side. Not for one single moment. Outside the window, the first riders of House Kestrel were already gathering in the scorched training yard, banners rising black and silver against a sky the color of old iron, and somewhere beyond the horizon, in a southern hold River had never seen and Corvin had already begun preparing for exactly this, the war that would decide both their lives was only just beginning to wake. River has changed the story once, but can he change fate forever? Continue the story in part 3 on my YT channel. Don't forget to like and subscribe.